For the many years that I've been working on women's issues, and many of you have known me working in domestic violence issues, one of the things that has become extremely clear to me, and more so today, is the fact that no matter what issue you're talking about, whether it's financing films or domestic violence or any other issue that women face, is that at the core of this is economic development. You cannot speak of women's power without speaking about women's economic development. When we control our economy, we can feed our children, we can have the home that we want, we can feed the world and control ourselves in so many ways, more ways than one, actually. The women that are here today have some of the expertise that we want to talk about today in that regard. I wanted to share another thing that Patty and I share in common, because this morning we were talking about CEDAW and promoting CEDAW in different cities. San Francisco became the first city and county in the country to pass CEDAW during the time she was the president of the Commission on the Status of Women in the city, and I was the director at the time. But one of the strategies we used is that we went to the most conservative woman, by San Francisco standards, by the way, conservative, to the most conservative woman on the board, who at the time happened to be the chair of the board. And we went to her, and what resonated with her, and I still love her to this day because of that, was that the most important part that we needed to promote was economic development for women. And to her, this CEDAW would not be important in San Francisco unless at the core was economic development. So that's why I wanted to share that with you, because after that, I think Patty and I also joined together to form another enterprise, and that was La Cocina in San Francisco. La Cocina was spearheaded by the Women's Foundation of California here in San Francisco, which is an incubator where women, primarily immigrant women, start their businesses in the food industry. And we have stories and stories of women who have been extremely successful. One of a woman whose husband didn't want to let her go to the kitchen, and she was afraid. And today she owns a restaurant and employs her husband. So, having said that, Anne Hoiberg, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, and is from San Diego, and she's highly active with the United Nations. So I want to start with you so that we can talk a little bit about the international, national issues that we're about to discuss when it comes to habitat, food, and health.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I feel like I'm with my people. We're such a diverse group, and yet we're all here on a common issue. How do we really promote peace in the world? How do we promote economic development? How do we promote women? So I want to go back to the Platform for Action. And as you can see, my copy is well worn. And I just want to talk about the issues that I'm passionate about based on the Platform for Action. And of course, I'm very involved in poverty in San Diego, trying to alleviate it. I'm working very hard on getting more women elected to office. I'm always recruiting women. And today, I hope to see that Molly will run for office. I hope to see Katie running for office, and Kimberly. Now, those are just the 3 women I've talked to. You know, my work isn't done yet for today. So if I could get those 3 to run for office, I would be thrilled. Now, why is this important? Now, if we go back to 1963, does anybody know who wrote the Pay Equity Act of 1963? Does anybody shout out her name? Come on, come on. You don't know. Edith Green from Oregon wrote the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Took her 8 years to get it passed. What? Who brought into the Civil Rights Act Title VII so that women would be included in the Civil Rights Act so that there wouldn't be sex discrimination? Who brought that into the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Does anybody know? Shout out her name. Martha Griffiths. Who brought Title IX into the educational amendments? Who brought that in 1972? Patsy Mink. Hello.
She's from Hawaii.
This is important. So I need Molly, Kimberly, and Katie to step up to the plate. Now, another issue that I'm passionate, come on, Molly, don't just. Another issue I'm passionate about is violence against women. Every day here in the United States, three women are murdered every day in the United States by a husband or an intimate partner. I don't like the word domestic violence. We're trying to change that through the American Psychological Association. It's intimate partner violence. It's terrorism in our homes. Forget domestic. That's a good word. What we're talking about is violence in our homes. We have to stop it. It's all over the place. So I'm passionate about that. Another issue I'm very passionate about is women in armed conflict. We're going to be spending over $1 trillion on nuclear weapons in the next 10 years. $1 trillion on nuclear weaponry. I want to grab that money. I want to grab that money. And I want to grab the $600 billion we're spending on the Department of Defense today. I want to grab that. I want to put that into economic development. I don't want any more homeless people. I saw a woman standing by a trash can at the Civic Theater in San Diego, a homeless woman wiping herself and disposing the Kleenex in a garbage container. We're spending over $600 billion on building more carriers, more F-35s. I went to hear Bill Maher speak a couple weeks ago. He came to San Diego. And he said, you know, our enemy is ISIS. There are 30,000 of them. They have 8,000 Toyota pickup trucks. And we're spending $1 trillion on nuclear weapons to fight this group of people? We're spending over $600 billion fighting these? This is the enemy? Come on, let's get serious. Let's grab that money and use it where it's important. Now, where is it important? And the Millennium Development Goals. They're ending this year, so I have to use up this T-shirt pretty soon. Okay, let me read what's really important. Article 25 of the UDHR. Everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in the circumstances beyond his control. We all have a right to that. Now, when I was talking to Katie today, trying to get her to run for office, she said, I'm going to have $150,000 in student debts when I graduate from law school. We need to grab that money from the Department of Defense and pay off that loan.
Thank you. Patty.
Marilyn told me 2 days ago that I was supposed to speak about sustainable cities, habitat, health, and food. So, let me start by throwing out a few statistics here. The world's cities occupy just 3% of the Earth's land, yet account for 60 to 80% of energy consumption, not to mention the 75% of carbon emissions. And we are experiencing greater urban migration. Half of our planet, about 3.5 billion people, live in cities, with about half of them living in slums. 6 million children still die before their fifth birthday each year, with nearly half of those deaths caused by a lack of nourishment. Or, I know I'm throwing out a lot of big numbers, let's just put it another way. Every 9 seconds, or by the time I stop snapping my fingers, another child is dead due to malnutrition. The key drivers of sustainability are going to be food, water, and sanitation. Cities have become the sources of power, not necessarily the governments, but cities, and what makes up the power within those cities. So how do we reconcile all of this, particularly here in California, with agriculture being the single largest employer in the world, providing livelihoods for 40% of today's global population? And where are the women when even the United Nations recognizes that if women farmers had the same access to the same resources as men, that the number of people who are hungry in this world would decrease by 150 million? Now, Anne had mentioned the Millennium Development Goals, which have ended. What the United Nations is working on and will be voting on at the end of this month are the Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17 major goals. It's up on the web. Read them. But for me, what's been important, what has always been important, is, to use the UN lingo, strengthening a civil society. That's what so many of you here in this room have been about for so long. So to put it in a different way, for me it's about having those voices at the table who are unheard, bringing together people across classes, across races, those who never hear each other's voices, and seeing what that can do. I think as we move forward, we're looking not just at strengthening cities, but really strengthening neighborhoods. And I'd just like to give a really brief example of some of the work that has been so fulfilling to me. And it was actually a project in Hawaii that we were working on through my foundation. There were a number of trafficked laborers from Laos who were working on farms in Hawaii. The Attorney General's office was going to come in and bust open the largest trafficked labor case in this country. Now, someone either blew it or was bought off on the case. As it happened, you had these trafficked laborers who just wanted to earn a decent wage. So, what we did is we played politics, small p. We received, or we got them to have 70 acres, 5 acres apiece, essentially. And this was land that was previously owned by the US military. This is Hawaii we're talking about. That was then owned by Monsanto, that was then leased to the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, who didn't want to lease the land to these disadvantaged farmers because, of course, they would not be successful. Well, after we got them the land, we began to work with them. A year later, they were reunited with their families. No one was on public assistance. The kids were in school. It's these little elements of success that is really the types of things that we need to be doing more on ground. And not only do we stop there, but there was a distribution system that allowed the produce that they were growing to actually go to low-income senior housing complexes. So
Go ahead, finish it.
with that, we can get into San Francisco. We can talk about food security.
And housing security for that
And
matter.
housing insecurity, and the cost of childcare.
Exactly,
and we can go on and on.
exactly.
But really, for all of us here, it is about building sustainable local communities.
Thank you very much.